Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. You know, of late I've been trying to put the pieces together, trying to really understand why the West is so deeply invested in Africa, why they're trying to scramble for control, especially now with what is going on in Burkina Faso. You see, Ibrahim Traore has made it clear he's not playing games of being controlled anymore. He's not interested in foreign control or influence anymore. He wants his people liberated. His vision is to see Africa free from Western domination. So I came across this video, a clip of Dr. Howard, that has changed the way I see things completely. Honestly, it has set the record straight for me, and everything is making sense. I'm putting all the pieces together now. So apparently, without Africa, none of these so-called giant nation would even stand on their own without Africa. That's how apparently they depend on Africa. That's why they won't leave Africa alone. Are you getting it? Even after colonization, Africa is still struggling. And you know, most people outside there in Europe or America, people believe that people in Africa still sleep in trees. But that's not the case. Africa is developing compared to what has been fed to the outside world. I don't want to say what is in this video in details because I don't want to spoil anything for you guys. I need you guys to watch this video for yourselves. I don't know if this video was meant to be released publicly, because if you listen closely, you hear people whispering in the background like, you know, this video was just leaked some years back. But it's all over the internet and I'm not the first one to play this video. I've brought it out because of what is happening in Burkina Faso. So please watch this video to the end. It's gonna make a lot of sense for you guys, especially if you've got question marks. You don't know like why the West is so much interested in Africa. Let's watch this together. I'll be right back at the end of this video to give my own 2 cents.
Africa, historically, sub-Saharan Africa has been fundamental to the global prosperity of the advanced countries. Okay? And Africa had a role to play. It has a role as a raw material producer. We will not allow sub-Saharan Africa to escape that. Okay, we do everything to keep sub-Saharan Africa where it is, also impoverished. It's absolutely vital for the prosperity of everyone else. So let's get clear about that. Okay, and this means all the economic structures, all the global institutions, and the economics we teach everyone is all designed to keep Africa exactly where it is. And whether it is Europe or US or now China, it's always the same. We need Africa to be impoverished because we need those raw materials and we need them dirt cheap. Okay, so that's the message. It doesn't mean to say that there's nothing Africans can do. Of course there is. Okay, but this is the opposition that they're fighting. This is what it's about. Because if Africa does do something different, I assure you living standards of all those in Europe and North America and Asia is going to fall. Okay? And that is a big price to pay. I assure you that the West is not going to allow that without a big fight. Okay, so this is what it's fundamentally about. What I want to show you is how these structures are operating. It's just 20 minutes, so we can't do very much, but just to give you a little bit of an idea. And why I keep the ideology part there is because we are part of the producers of ideology. At universities and academic institutions, we are complicit in this whole enterprise. Okay, so the job of many Western academics is to convince Africans they have to keep doing what they're doing. Okay? And to show them it's your fault that you're poor. It's not our fault. It's your fault that you're poor. You know? So this is what we do in academic institutions, and I want to show that as well. Let me just start. This is what it's basically about, so you know what it's about, but I want to just show you the extent to which Africa is specializing in the production of raw materials and basic agricultural goods. We know the basic forces that have caused this underdevelopment. We know it's colonization. I will not discuss that very much because my colleague speaker is going to go into some aspects of this. But I do want to discuss the global economic structures, the global financial institutions, and economic ideology, briefly, to give you a flavor of those. Let me start with this. You can't really see it so easily, but if those of you who are interested, you want the PowerPoint, I'm sure we can make it available to you. But the thing that you really need to see It's the top line. Okay, and the extent of dependency is captured by this statistic at the top. Okay, and you compare it with all other income groups, and what you see is essentially in that one statistic how dependent sub-Saharan Africa is on raw material production. Okay, this is the very heart of what makes sub-Saharan Africa beat. Okay, here, just to have a look at one very important additional statistic, with all this export coming from sub-Saharan Africa, how much does sub-Saharan Africa account for in terms of global trade value? We know there are vast resources coming from there, but look at the bottom line in terms of global trade value. Look at that. 0.5%, 1975, 0.95% going down to 0.1. To 0.1. Meaning that with all these vast resources being produced, how much are they getting for it? Nothing. Nothing. This is a very significant piece of data. Then I just want to show you what has happened to sub-Saharan Africa, because what we know, and from all studies, no country ever develops without manufacturing. Okay, producing raw materials will not take you anywhere. Producing basic agricultural goods will not take you anywhere. And let's have a look at how much manufacturing activity takes place in sub-Saharan Africa. We can look over the last 15 odd years, 15, 20 years. And we see manufacturing has actually declined as a percentage of the total. This is percentages of total production in sub-Saharan Africa. How much of it is accounted for by manufacturing? So this figure here is 17% of the total. Most of the rest, when we talk of industry, it includes manufacturing, but the bulk of it is mining. Okay? Raw material extraction. This is the bulk of it. And here we see actually raw material extraction has stayed the same. What has caused industry to fall is the fall in manufacturing production. This is deliberate because we will never, as Western economists, as Western policymakers, we cannot afford to allow Africa to industrialize and start producing manufactures. Okay, so we will do everything to stop that. And I'm going to show you how we actually block that. It's obvious in certain ways, but it's less obvious in other ways. Now, we have actually seen periods of rapid growth in sub-Saharan Africa, misleading people, saying, oh, you know, we're now doing much better. And this has happened recently. Recently, I've had students come and tell me, we've done much better now. And you can see growth rates rose quite sharply in recent times. Now are starting to go again down. But if you look historically, the same thing happened earlier. Why? Because in these two periods, we had East Asian rapid industrialization processes. So in the earlier period, we had Japan and Korea and Taiwan. Okay, rapid growth, sucking in raw materials from Africa, driving up the prices, and then sub-Saharan African countries grew. Exporting raw materials, they grew. But after those countries finished industrialization, then sub-Saharan African growth rate again fell. Okay, but along comes China. Next wave. Okay, again, sub-Saharan African growth rises, but now China is going down. As many of you now know from the press, China is going down. But sub-Saharan Africa is going down even faster. And we're going to go back to where we were again, with very low prices of raw materials, very low growth rates, and again the sorts of poverty that we saw once before. Because, bottom line, Sub-Saharan Africa is condemned to this role, just the supplier of raw materials, not a manufacturer.
Now let's really talk about this. Everything Dr. Howard mentioned in that video, it's not fiction, it's not theory, it's not something from a black history textbook. I can assure you that right there, what he's saying, everything he said, be it a past video, is exactly what is happening in Africa right now, just in case you didn't know. Everything he has said, every warning he gave, I don't know if I can call it a warning, a discussion, whatever they were talking about, every truth he laid bare, it's already unfolding step by step. It has been there and it continues to unfold across the continent. Africa is rich, guys. Not just rich, but abundantly blessed with natural resources: gold, diamonds, cobalt, lithium, oil, uranium. Everything the modern world needs to survive and thrive. Africa has everything. Enough to take care of itself, I must say. Enough to lead, to be the one in charge, enough to rise. But can you see what is happening right now? Can you see it happening? No, you don't see it, because that's not part of the plan. Not the Western plan, at least. See, Dr. Howard made it crystal clear when he said they won't allow Africa to prosper. They will do anything to keep Africa right where it is. And if you've been paying attention, if you've opened your eyes just a little, you'll notice it's all happening just like he said. Take a look at what's happening in Burkina Faso right now. Captain Ibrahim Traore, I'm getting this last name correctly. At least I'm trying, okay? The youngest leader in Africa right now is standing firm. This man has boldly said no more to exploitation, no more to foreign puppeteering, no more to being told how to run his country by outsiders who don't care about his people. And what happened? Suddenly, his public enemy number one, according to the West. Ibrahim Traore has survived, if I'm not mistaken, 19 coup attempts so far. Let that sink in. 19th? They are literally trying everything to take him, capiche. That's not by accident. That's what Dr. Howard meant when he said the West won't allow it without a fight. I'm sure you've heard that part in the video. Okay? He just didn't say that because he was, talking from without. Okay? They didn't just say, okay, Traore doesn't want us here. No, let's back and go. They have brought in Captain Langley. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I don't care. An American Marine who's allegedly been assigned to arrest Traore. Arrest him for what? Exactly. For choosing freedom over fear, for choosing his people over profit. That right there is the crime Ibrahim Traore has committed, to take care of his people, choosing to liberate his country from imperial control. He said, we owe you nothing. And he meant it. The man literally paid all Burkina Faso debts to the West. Every last coin. So they couldn't pull the usual, but you owe us cards, such kind of cards. Now what's left is they're out of moves, and when the puppet strings are cut, their next strategy is force. Dr. Howard, as you have heard him in this video, he told us they would never allow Africa to stand on its own 2 feet. And what's happening now, especially in Congo, Burkina Faso, what is happening? So Ivory Coast, a neighboring country, is being set up as a I can just put it as a launching pad. Yes, because Captain Langley, as we speak right now, He's in Ivory Coast right now, preparing, I don't know if I can call it strategizing. And if you read between the lines, it's clear they want to use Ivory Coast as a getaway to, enter Burkina Faso. I'm not speculating anything, this isn't conspiracy. This is happening right now, and this isn't ancient history, like it's happening right now. This is real life. And we've seen such things happen before, over and over again. Every time an African leader stands tall, speaks the truth, fights for sovereignty, they end up being silenced, or worse, RIP. It's always the same cycle: resistance, retaliation, removal. They don't allow Africa to rise because a truly independent Africa, a powerful Africa, is a threat to the world order as it exists today. You take away Africa resources from these so-called global superpowers, they're gonna fall. Okay, and Traore knows that. That's why he's being tagged. Yeah, that's why his people are under pressure, because he broke the unspoken rule: Africa must remain submissive. But he said no, loud and clear, and now he's paying the price. So while all this is going on, what are we doing? As Africans, we have stood up, and we are having on the 30th of this month, I think that is tomorrow. We're not just scrolling and watching, we are speaking out on other platforms. We are finally starting to wake up. And I'm thankful for every brother who's not African, as long as they are black out there, they are speaking out. I know it's hard to digest. I know it sounds unbelievable, because we were taught to believe the West was, helping Africa, that all the aid and military presence was for peacekeeping, that it was all goodwill. But Dr. Howard ripped the veil off all that. He exposed it for what it really is. It's control, a system designed to keep Africa trapped in dependency. And that's the part that gets even more interesting. Dr. Howard hinted at it, and I'll just say this: I can't talk. I'm failing to say some things. I can't talk too much about it on this platform. But we both know something's going on. Something big is happening. Okay? And by the way, let's just say China isn't going down. I think Dr. Howard mentioned that on around 7 minutes of that video. It's not it's not a recent video. I'm sure by the time they made this video, China wasn't doing okay, but China is doing fine. Okay? Yeah, so I feel so limited to say so much on this video. So at this point, I'm just gonna say, let's continue this conversation in the comment section below. I want you guys to let me know what you think. Are you seeing what is happening? Do you think Africa can be free, or will the system crush another leader with a dream? Please drop your thoughts. Be respectful. We don't want our, let's be mindful of the comments that we are leaving. Yeah, and if this video, you found it interesting, please make sure you leave your thoughts in the comment section down below. Subscribe if you have not subscribed, and I'll definitely see you in my next video. Please stay peaceful.